Hello YouTubers, I'm Evita Cooks and Preps with another delicious recipe, this time with my version of the classic beef and potato stew. For this recipe we need beef and I'm using roast. We're also going to need some potatoes, celery, carrots, and for the condiments we have some garlic paste and I'm using my homemade garlic paste, sofrito criollo, and you can find the recipe on how to make the sofrito criollo right up here. We're also gonna need some all-purpose seasoning, adobo without pepper, beef broth powder, sazon criollo, and I'm using my sazon criollo, but this is the equivalent of one package. We're also gonna need some cumin, dried oregano, sweet paprika, ground pepper. I have some red and green bell peppers, and even though I'm using my sofrito criollo, whenever I cook these meals, especially these classic meals, I like to incorporate fresh ingredients, and that usually takes the form of bell peppers, celery, carrots, and later on I'm also going to be adding some fresh cilantro and culantro, or the two cousins like I call them. However, for the herbs, the cilantro and the culantro are entirely optional. You can certainly use parsley, thyme, rosemary goes very well with beef. So if you want to substitute it for rosemary, you can go ahead and do that too. I usually just give you guys a basic recipe on what I like to use, but you know that the sky is the limit, especially with these types of recipes. And to finish, you're also going to need some olives. I'm using pitted olives, but if you prefer using the sliced or stuffed olives, go ahead and do that, especially if you have small children. I'm incorporating some capers because the olives and the capers add a different level of flavor to the meat, especially to beef. It goes very well together. In place of the tomato sauce, I'm using some tomato paste. Most people like their stew to be a little thick, so I'm going to be using some tapioca powder. You could use cornstarch, you can use arrowroot, whatever you have available, it's fine. And if you don't want your stew to be too thick, you can certainly omit the starch because we're using potatoes. And potatoes will naturally add a little thickness to your stew. Now this dish cooks in one pot. You can certainly use your pressure cooker. I'm gonna do it the way my mom makes it, nice and slow on the stovetop. But again, if you want to use your pressure cooker, go ahead and do that. Let's get started with this process, and before I go, I just want to remind you that if you haven't subscribed already and you like the content that I share with you, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Comment below the video for the YouTube algorithm, and most importantly, don't forget to activate the notification bell to be notified when I upload new recipes and prepper ideas. While I'm preheating the oil, I'm going to season the beef. I'm going to be using the all-purpose seasoning, and I'm going to dump everything and just toss it. The adobo, sazon, the beef broth powder, cumin, oregano, black pepper, and the sweet paprika. You can do this all in the pot, but I'm also going to be tossing the cornstarch or the arrowroot or tapioca powder, whatever it is you're using, with the meat. So I like to season the meat first and then coat it with the starch, okay? But if you want, you could just dump everything into the pot, skip this part, and put it all in the pot. But since I'm going to brown it lightly, I like to use this method instead. Okay, when you have all your beef nice and coated, it smells amazing. We can dump the starch. Okay, get all that in there. And this is going to help brown the meat, and it's also going to thicken the stew. Now, since I'm making this on the stovetop, it does take a little bit of time. However, if you use your pressure cooker, it should take maybe half of the time, depending on your pressure cooker. Maybe I should have gotten a bigger bowl, but trying to get dinner ready. The boys are coming home early today, and I know they'll be hungry. Doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to get it coated lightly and put it into the pot. The oil is already preheating. Let's go ahead and take a look. I love these pots. The only downfall to them is that they stain very easily, but that's just an indication that it's being used, okay? So I'm just gonna dump everything in. The oil is not 100% hot, but that's okay. And I'm also gonna dump in the flour or the starch from the beef because we have some of the seasonings. I'm going to be using some water. I'm going to be putting the water in this bowl so that I can get all those seasonings and that starch out of there, okay? Let's give it a minute. Now, I grew up eating beef stew and chicken stew. On my mother's side, for the most part, they're all cooks. So I was blessed learning a little bit from all of them. They all have their own cooking methods. Sadly, none of them have recipes, so pretty much I learned how to cook just by watching them. Anytime you ask your mom or your grandma or even my aunts and uncles, you know, how do you make it? What is the recipe? They always give you the same answer. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So one of the things that I do enjoy about cooking is that you can improvise and make any classic recipe your own. So I'm going to give this a few minutes and I'm going to continue browning the beef. And as we progress, we're going to go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients. Okay, once you get a little bit of color on that meat, we're going to add the sofrito criollo. Be sure to check my channel for my recipe for sofrito criollo. You can also find it in the freezer aisle in most supermarkets. But I guarantee you, you want to make your own because it's nothing like homemade sofrito. Okay, we're going to stir that a little bit and also add the bell peppers. Now this is optional. Like I said, I use sofrito criollo, and the sofrito criollo already has peppers in it. But there's something about adding it fresh that I just absolutely love. And I still have the heat on medium, especially because I'm using this pot and the starch, as you can see, begins to stick to the bottom of the pot. So that's not a big deal because once we add the broth or the water, we'll take care of that, okay? I'm also gonna add the celery. The celery is my personal touch. My mother does not use celery. Mostly because some of my siblings did not enjoy the taste of celery in their food. But I like adding it, especially because I'm making stew, okay? Now I can add my garlic paste. This is my minced garlic paste. I also make a pureed garlic paste. And you can also find that recipe in the channel. I'll see if I can remember to put the links to those videos below the video in the description box. If you want to check those out. Now my mom's classic beef stew recipe calls for tomato sauce. I like to use tomato paste, but if you don't have the paste, you can go ahead and substitute it for tomato sauce. Already looks delicious. So I'm just going to coat the meat with the paste. But that's really just a matter of preference to me, but check it out. That color, it already looks delicious, smells amazing. I wish you guys could be here to smell it. But if you make this at home, make sure to come back and leave us a comment below the video. And also to help us out with the YouTube algorithms, your comments and your thumbs up help a lot. Especially if you would like me to continue sharing this content, it's very important that you remember to come back. And if you like the video, give us a thumbs up, share the video with your family and friends in social media. And most importantly, leave a comment. That tells YouTube that you like this content and you want to see more. Okay. I'm adding the capers and the olives. If you're serving this to the kids, remember, use the Spanish stuffed olives instead. Look at that. It's not ready yet, but I guarantee you, even though it takes a little longer when you make it on the stovetop, it tastes amazing. I'm going to add the water, and what I have here is the water mixed in the bowl that I used to season the beef so that I can pick up all those seasonings and the starch. Okay, we're adding more water. And we need enough water to cover the meat. And also because I'm not using the pressure cooker, you got to keep an eye on it. If you notice that the water begins to evaporate too quickly, then you may want to add a little bit more. But for now, I think this is enough. And I'm just going to bring the meat to a boil. When the meat comes to a boil, I'm going to reduce the heat to medium-low. Cover it. We have to cook the meat until the meat is nice and tender, so that can take anywhere between 30 minutes to 45 minutes depending on your stove or if you're using a pressure cooker, it might take less time. Because I'm using this pot, usually it takes between 35 minutes to 45 minutes on my stovetop. And when the meat is tender, we're going to add the potatoes and the carrots. And when the potatoes and the carrots are tender, which usually takes about 10 minutes, we're going to finish it with the two cousins, cilantro and culantro. We'll taste and adjust the seasoning, and most importantly, when we come back, we're going to try it. Just like that, we made my version of the classic beef and potato stew. For more classic and delicious recipes like this one, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up if you like this video, comment for the YouTube algorithm, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to be notified when I upload more simple and delicious video recipes like this one. And until next time, I'm Evita Cooks and Preps. Bon appetit. Yum. It's absolutely fabulous. You really have to try it.